To give some context, my mother-in-law is the kind of person who loves to make a big deal out of even the smallest accomplishments. She has a way of showing off her achievements, even though, to be honest, she doesn't live a particularly fancy or impressive life. But still, she puts a lot of effort into making herself seem important in our social circles. One clear example of her unusual behavior is the monthly club party she hosts. It's not a real club, it's just a gathering she organizes where she invites some friends and coworkers. Since they all share the same profession, she calls them her colleagues in a way that makes it sound like it's some exclusive group, but really, it's just her friends. These gatherings have been going on for quite a while, and from what I understand, they're mostly about each of them bragging about what they've achieved over the past month. So, given how much she loves to share her own stories, I wasn't surprised when she got all excited about sharing my upcoming wedding details. My grandfather had generously arranged a destination wedding for me, including a 7-day stay package. He knew how much I dreamed of a special wedding and decided to give me this wonderful gift. Since I had a limited budget, I was careful to plan every detail, including a very selective guest list. My husband and I sat down and discussed how we would handle the guest list. Coming from large families, we knew this would be challenging, but we agreed to keep it small and focus on close friends and family. I ended up inviting 24 of my family members, while my husband invited 19 of our closest friends and family. These were people we genuinely felt connected to and interacted with regularly. We were finally ready to send out the invitations when, unexpectedly, my mother-in-law arrived at our home late one evening, completely uninvited. It was already around 8 p.m., and her sudden appearance took me by surprise. Right from the moment she arrived, she began insisting we make changes to the guest list. I found it odd that she felt she had the right to dictate who should attend my wedding. To my disappointment, my husband was actually backing her up, which instantly concerned me. When I asked her what changes she wanted, she told me that she had already promised invitations to some of her work friends, the same ones she often invited to her club gatherings. She seemed very insistent, even though I calmly explained that we had already filled the guest list with people who were truly close to us. I tried to make it clear that each person invited was someone we had a meaningful relationship with, someone we saw and spoke to regularly. I looked to my husband for support, hoping he would understand the importance of keeping the guest list to those who mattered to us most. But he avoided making eye contact and, to my disappointment, continued to take his mother's side. I explained our reasoning again, hoping she'd understand, but she wouldn't budge. She kept pushing, asking me to rearrange things, and it left me feeling completely frustrated and, honestly, hurt that both of them couldn't see where I was coming from. I showed my mother-in-law the guest list, trying to explain that each person was someone very close to us. I told her that we couldn't take anyone off the list without hurting feelings, but she didn't agree. She even suggested removing my cousin's sister. This was someone I had lived with for several years after college, and she meant a lot to me. My mother-in-law's argument was that my cousin had recently moved to Dudley, so coming to our wedding in the States would be too inconvenient for her. At this point, I was losing my patience. I asked my fiancé to help me talk to his mother, hoping he would understand why I was so firm about keeping my cousin's sister on the list. Instead, he took his mother's side. He kept saying that we should honor her wishes and invite her friends, especially since she had already told them about the wedding destination. I could feel my frustration growing. It hurt that my fiancé didn't seem to care about my side of things, and I was angry that he seemed to be acting irrationally. Feeling overwhelmed and upset, I stormed out of the room to cool off. The next day, I woke up with a new plan. If they were going to be inconsiderate about my wedding just to look good in front of their friends, then I could respond in a similar way. I called my grandfather, who had been so generous in helping us with the wedding. I told him everything that happened the night before, explaining how both my fiancé and his mother were pushing me to change the guest list. When I finished explaining, I made a decision. I told my grandfather that, instead of trying to change their minds, I would just remove certain family members from my list. I told him I would take him, my grandmother, and my uncle's family off the list. I even suggested that he cancel the wedding gift he had planned since he was no longer invited. Thankfully, my grandfather understood my situation and didn't hold it against me. He supported my decision without any hard feelings. When I sent the new guest list to my mother-in-law and fiancé, they were shocked. I calmly explained that, by removing those family members, we had lost the wedding venue because my grandfather was no longer funding the wedding. I told them that now we either had to find a new venue within the next 3 months or consider postponing the wedding. There would also be new expenses for reprinting invitations and booking places for out-of-town guests. I wanted them to realize that the wedding was only happening because of my family's support. Soon after, my mother-in-law came over, apologizing for pushing me to change the guest list. She begged me to call my grandfather back and invite him and his family again. She even asked me to ask him not to cancel the hotel reservations or withdraw his support. In that moment, I hoped they both finally understood how their actions had complicated things. I couldn't help but wonder why my mother-in-law was suddenly apologizing. She had already gotten what she wanted. Invitations sent to her colleagues, fulfilling the promises she made to them. Now, she seemed troubled about it, admitting that if the wedding wasn't a destination event, inviting her friends wouldn't be as exciting or special for them. She even said a regular wedding would just be too ordinary. When she expressed these thoughts, my husband finally admitted that he regretted supporting her decision. But I wasn't ready to let him off the hook that easily. I reminded him that he shouldn't need things to go wrong to support me on something so straightforward. He apologized again, but I made it clear that my decision was final. Even if I invited my grandfather back, I knew we wouldn't get his generous gift back. I questioned myself, wondering if I was being too stubborn, but deep down, I knew I needed to stand my ground. It was my wedding, after all, and I had every right to make decisions that felt right to me. Yet, I couldn't ignore a tiny feeling of guilt. Was I being unreasonable for not reversing my decision? Did it make me a bad person to feel satisfied about sticking to my decision? Still, I reminded myself that my mother-in-law had pushed things to this point. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law wasn't done causing problems. As I mentioned before, I had no intention of asking my grandfather to restore his wedding gift, and this clearly upset her. She started calling my fiancé almost every other day, portraying me as ungrateful and difficult. She even hinted that I was trying to cause trouble on purpose. Although I had stood my ground, hearing her label me ungrateful stung, especially since she was the one responsible for creating this situation in the first place. But it didn't stop there. She went as far as advising my fiancé to reconsider his choices, saying that my actions were just the beginning and that his life would be like this if he stayed with me. During one of these calls, my fiancé had her on speakerphone, and I overheard every word. Surprisingly, I felt grateful to hear her true feelings out in the open. I realized that my fiancé usually kept things like this from me to avoid conflict, which was probably his way of trying to protect our relationship. He did tell his mother that she had crossed the line, but he didn't stand up to her in a stronger way. I understand that he has a close relationship with his mother, and it's not fair of me to ask him to cut ties with her just because she has issues with me. However, I also know that if this interference continues, I might reach a breaking point. The thought of dealing with this behavior for the rest of my life was daunting. Today, I had a heartfelt conversation with my grandfather and shared the news about the new wedding venue we had found. While it didn't match my original dream, just talking to him reminded me of what really mattered. He listened, understood, and reassured me, reminding me to keep my focus on the people who truly support us. I've always cherished my relationship with my grandfather, so reconnecting with him about the wedding meant a lot to me. Even though the venue we picked in the end wasn't exactly what I had first imagined, it was still beautiful, and I found true happiness in it. I told him he was invited again, and hearing his laughter warmed my heart. His constant support and love over the years have meant everything to me, and his encouragement made this difficult journey a little easier. As things with my mother-in-law grew more complicated, I felt I needed to talk openly with my husband about her behavior. Our conversation was honest and dug into the awkward and painful situations her actions had created. He promised to talk with her directly and make clear boundaries for her role in our lives. I hoped this would bring a bit of peace, so we could finally move forward without any more family drama. Then, finally, the wedding day arrived, and now I am officially married. Despite the ups and downs leading up to it, the wedding itself was beautiful, and I was overjoyed. One thing that made me smile was seeing my mother-in-law sitting in a corner with her work friends, looking a bit out of place. I realized that no amount of her planning or influencing could change that the day was still exactly what I wanted it to be. In a completely unexpected surprise, my grandfather gave us a house as a wedding gift. It was a generous present from him and my uncles together. I felt incredibly blessed, knowing they were excited for us to start our new life with such an amazing gift. I am so happy to be beginning this new chapter with my husband, and I wanted to share this update with everyone who followed our journey. Through all of this, I learned that some people will always try to tell others how their big moments, like a wedding, should happen or who should be included. It frustrates me that people feel entitled to decide things that are so personal. My mother-in-law may have had her own ideas, but I hope this experience shows her that it's time to let go of control and let us make our own choices. If she still wants to organize an event, she can plan her own. It's important for each person to be free to celebrate their life's milestones in their own way. Some people have suggested I rethink things with my husband, as he initially took his mother's side. It did hurt me, but I feel he is learning and starting to see things clearly now. I know I'm not perfect, and neither is he, but we're willing to work together, and that's what matters most to me. On a personal note, life has been busy. I'm currently pregnant and caring for our 3-year-old, so things are hectic. Recently, my parents and my sister decided to stay with us after their cruise got canceled. Our house is small, and while my parents took the guest bed, my sister chose the couch. She could have shared the bed with me, but her loud snoring kept us from getting any rest. By the second night, we were all feeling the effects of the lack of space. Then, during dinner, my dad shared some surprising news that added even more to our already full plate. Life's challenges never really end, but I'm ready to face whatever comes next. My dad casually told me that they had invited my sister's boyfriend, whom she'd only been dating for 6 weeks, to come stay with us for the entire weekend. He'd already bought his ticket and was arriving on Friday morning at 8 a.m. This caught me completely off guard. I'd never even met this guy, and he'd only been part of her life for a short time. What upset me most was that they didn't ask me beforehand if it was okay for him to stay. On top of that, we didn't have the space for another guest. He'd have to sleep on the couch, which was already tight, and my sister would either have to share the couch or my bed with him. The thought of a stranger staying overnight in my home, with my 3-year-old son sleeping in his own room, made me uncomfortable. Feeling frustrated, I called my husband, and together we decided to say no to the arrangement. We agreed that inviting someone I'd never met to stay in our home without even checking with us was disrespectful and just not okay. So, while I was at work, I called my sister to let her know about our decision. As soon as my mom found out, she got very angry. She started criticizing me, saying I was overreacting and doubting their ability to judge someone's character. She insisted they would never invite anyone who wasn't trustworthy, even though they'd only known him for a short time and hadn't spent much time with him. The conversation ended with them hanging up on me. Later, I found out they had quickly packed their things and left the house. My mom sent me a text afterward, accusing my husband of turning me against them. She said they were leaving not because they thought they were wrong, but because they believed I was being an inhospitable host. According to her, I had changed since I'd been with my husband, making me a less caring person over the past 8 years. 4 days later, they tried to call me again, acting as if nothing had happened. I was baffled by how they didn't seem to understand why I reacted the way I did. I'm left wondering if anyone else might understand their perspective because, to me, my actions felt completely reasonable. I was simply being a responsible parent, not unreasonable or rude. They invited themselves over, and I didn't feel obligated to host them, especially not a stranger. It feels like they couldn't handle the fact that I've grown up and am making my own choices without needing their approval. This experience made me realize I need to set clearer boundaries with them. In my response to them, I was honest. I explained that I'm not a bad host just because I didn't invite them in the first place. They chose to come, and I made room for them despite the inconvenience. But inviting someone else, a complete stranger, without my knowledge was crossing a line. I still feel surprised by their reaction, as if they don't understand or respect my feelings and choices in my own home. Setting these boundaries feels essential now, and it's time they understand that my decisions and the safety of my family come first. Their sense of entitlement was disappointing, and it's time for me to make it clear that things need to change if we're going to have a healthy relationship going forward. When I decided not to back down and refused their request to let my sister's boyfriend stay over, my family's reaction surprised me. They chose to leave and find somewhere else to stay, but not without attacking my character and questioning my decisions. After seeing how they behaved in my home, I realized things need to change. If they want to stay with us in the future, there will definitely be some new rules. For now, I've decided to take a step back from them and limit contact until I feel ready to reconnect. They crossed a line by inviting someone I'd never met into my home without even asking if it was okay. They didn't ask me, they just informed me that it was happening, assuming I would simply go along with it. They even mentioned noticing that I was in a good mood, which shows they knew this might not go over well. It felt like they assumed I'd just let it slide. But this time, I'm standing up for myself and putting the safety of my family first. I know I'm not wrong here. To give a bit more context, I'm a 35-year-old woman, currently 6 months pregnant with my first child. My husband, who is 38, is away on a business trip and isn't expected back until next month. Being pregnant and still working at the office has been challenging, so this situation with my family came at a stressful time. I felt their actions were inconsiderate, and it's frustrating because I'm trying to balance everything while keeping a peaceful environment for myself and my growing family. When I first met my husband, he had a very plain diet due to his mother's strict cooking style. She avoided using spices, sauces, herbs, and even basic things like salt, sugar, and pepper, as she thought it was healthier. He was used to bland food, but once he tried my cooking, he discovered a whole world of flavors beyond his mother's limited recipes. Since then, he's come to enjoy more flavorful food, and it's been nice introducing him to different tastes. One Friday, I had a strong craving for curry, so I decided to make a big batch. Usually, I have pre-prepared meals in the freezer, but this time I wanted to enjoy something fresh. I made extra and stored the leftovers in the fridge, looking forward to having it again the next day. However, that day my in-laws unexpectedly showed up. They have a spare key for emergencies, but this visit was unannounced. When I got home, ready to relax and enjoy my leftover curry, I found that it was gone. When I got home that day, I found my curry gone and replaced with a dish my mother-in-law had made. She had thrown away my meal, saying it tasted spoiled. I was really looking forward to my curry, and since I'm pregnant, I couldn't stomach the idea of eating her cooking. I didn't want to waste it, so I quietly took her food and gave it to a homeless person nearby. Unfortunately, someone saw me doing this and told my in-laws. Not long after, I started getting a flood of angry messages, including from my mother-in-law. My husband supported me through it, but now I'm wondering if I handled it the right way or if I overreacted. Honestly, it feels like my in-laws are trying to control more of my life than I'm comfortable with. Their behavior, coming into my home without asking and throwing away my food, shows a lack of respect for boundaries. The main issue here isn't just about the food. It's about the way they don't respect our space and privacy. Having them enter our home unannounced, especially when I'm not there, makes me feel uncomfortable. It's clear that some changes are needed to create a healthier balance. I want our home to feel like a safe, peaceful place, especially with a baby on the way. One idea I've considered is talking with my husband about setting firmer boundaries with his parents. We could start by politely explaining that we appreciate their support, but need a bit more privacy as we prepare for our new family. I'm also thinking about more practical steps, like changing the locks or even installing security cameras. This way, we can make sure that our space is respected and that our home feels like a safe place for our family. It's tough to navigate these situations with family, but I believe it's important to have clear boundaries. It's not about cutting ties or being unkind. It's about making sure everyone understands and respects our need for privacy and peace at home. I hope that, by being open about my needs, we can avoid similar situations in the future. After all, my home is my space, and I deserve to feel comfortable and respected within it. Setting these boundaries now will also help prevent misunderstandings once the baby arrives. It's important to create a supportive and respectful environment, where everyone feels valued and respected. For now, I'm focusing on making my home a safe, happy place for my husband, our soon-to-arrive child, and myself.